Nandana Vrajanarandana Yashodanandana Vrajanarandana Yamuna Tiro Monachari Yamuna Tiro Monachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunj Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunj Vihari Jaya Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivrajkacharya Sata Shri Srimad Chidandi Goswami Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnuvada Paramahansa Parivrajkacharya Sata Shri Srimad Srila bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai ISKCON founder in charge of Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem se kaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shyamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Shri Srimad bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai Srila bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Vyas Puja Maha Mahotsav Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. I suppose we still invoke Bhagavan Vasudevaya. We're not going to speak on Bhagavatam. So we still... Let us do it. It is all auspicious. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, Srila bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Prabhupada ki jai. I'm so unqualified to sit here. My only qualification is I know how to use a computer, and I know how to Google, and I know how to print things, and I know how to read them. So that is what mostly I'm going to do. And my thought was to begin with Srila Prabhupada's own prayer to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. According to this, it was composed in 1935. So this would have been just 1 year before Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada's departure. And we also have another offering that in the following year, in 1936, which was delivered on behalf of the assembled devotees of the Bombay Gaudiya Math. It was Bombay then, not Mumbai. But this is a beautiful, beautiful poem that Srila Prabhupada wrote and was much appreciated by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and published in the Harmonist. So, adore, adore ye all the happy day, blessed than heaven, sweeter than May, when he appeared at Puri, the holy place, my Lord and Master, his divine grace. O my Master, the evangelic angel, give us thy light, light up thy candle, struggle for existence, a human race, the only hope, his divine grace. Misled we are all, going astray. Save us, Lord, our fervent pray. Wonder thy ways, to turn our face, adore thy feet, your divine grace. Forgotten Krishna, we fallen souls, paying most heavy the illusion's toll, darkness around, all untrace, the only hope, his divine grace. Message of service thou hast brought, a healthful life as Chaitanya wrought, unknown to all, it's full of brace. That's your gift, your divine grace. Absolute is sentient, Thou hast proved impersonal calamity. Thou hast moved. This gives us a life, new and fresh. Worship thy feet, your divine grace. Had you not come, who had told the message of Krishna, forceful and bold, that's your right. You have the mace. Save me a fallen, your divine grace. The line of service as drawn by you is pleasing and healthy, like morning dew, the oldest of all, but in new dress. Miracle done, your divine grace. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Prabhupada's choice of words is so wonderful here. In this poem, we get a broad view of the gifts of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Srila Prabhupada begins by describing message of service thou hast brought. A healthful life as Chaitanya wrought, unknown to all, it's full of grace. In this context, I believe Srila Prabhupada is using the word brace in the same way that you might use the word if you broke your arm and had to put it in a brace. Holds us up, supports us. The life of service. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur appeared in this world. Now this is where the printing out helps. Get the exact day, okay. February 6th. February 6th, 1874. 1874. Just about 22 years before, 12 years. Is that right? Yeah, 22 years, 1996, sorry. Yeah, 1896, our Srila Prabhupada appeared. So just 22 years. So 1874. Very interesting time in India and in Bengal. This is practically speaking the height. If I had had more time to prepare, I was going to look up when was Victoria's Jubilee. I think it was around this time, when she was crowned in Delhi as the emperor. The emperor, not just the Queen of England, but the emperor. Big, this is the height of the, but it's also, the British have consolidated their power. They put down the 1852, 53 Sepoy Mutiny. They put down the resistance. They've consolidated. This is the height of their power. This is the height of their dominion and education and in every field. The British. And in the midst of this, all of we see that most, not all, but most of the intellectual Bengali community, the intelligent, had abandoned the path of Vaishnavism. They had looked and seen the antics of the so-called Gaudiya Chaitanya Vaishnavas, who had besmirched the legacy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in every way. And then we see the rise of Vivekananda and the Brahma Samaj. So this leads us to the first statement of the gift of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. The life of service, the healthful life that Chaitanya wrought, not the debauched life associated with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through the antics of the various Appa Sampradayas, who had distorted the pastime of Mahaprabhu's worship of Krishna in the mood of Sri Radha, the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, distorted them by their mundane, filthy idea of Krishna as some ordinary lover, and that they could achieve some spiritual platform through imitation. This is the environment that Bhaktivinoda Thakur found himself in, and then discovered the actual teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, particularly through the pages of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Time for advertisement. The SPT is conducting a series of talks on Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita every day. Today we'll also, I'm this evening going to again be talking of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, but we are focusing on Chaitanya Charitamrita. So that is, look it up, gbcspt.com, on YouTube, Facebook, website, and Mayapur TV. So, but Bhaktivinoda Thakur began the work to revive, to turn from the idea that one could achieve the pure love of Krishna by some imitative process, jumping ahead into various raga anuga practices. But instead he gave the fundamental practice of service. It is by service, by becoming first and foremost, developing the attitude of a servant. Then the more, you could, what you call intimate forms of service can arise naturally. And the service begins and ends too with the service of the holy names. So this healthful life, this life of service, was the first gift that Srila Prabhupada points out. Then he goes on to the next gift. Absolute is sentient, thou hast proved. Impersonal calamity, thou hast moved. This is the other element that is dominating in this time. On the one side, we have the Prakrita Sahajiyas, the various Appa Sampradayas, who have distorted the teachings of Sri Chaitanya and have, in one sense, de-emphasized the mood of being a humble servant, thinking that simply by dressing up or doing, spouting this or that, one can enter into Krishna prema. thinking it is so sahajiya, so easy, but it is not. One has to reform through service. So the other parallel track that is degrading the Vaishnava community is the rise of impersonalism. Of course, it has been there since Shankaracharya. But with the advent of printing and so many other media and the popularity of swamis like Vivekananda, this has become even more the prevalent mood of the intellectual. But using the same tools of intellectual argument that the propounders of Brahma Samaj, etc., were using to establish their position. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta used such high language and deep logic to establish, to prove, what is Prabhupada saying here? Absolute is sentient, thou hast proved. So this is the next gift. And then in the next verse, Srila Prabhupada brings out, had you not come, who had told the message of Krishna, forceful and bold? This quality of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, of boldness in preaching, was a hallmark of his work, his service. And Prabhupada says, that's your right. You have the mace. you hold the power, the mace, the club. You have it, you hold it, and you can wield it. To destroy not only the false ideologies, but also, as Prabhupada says in the next line, save me, a fallen, to save us. He has that mace too. And finally, the last such extraordinary gift of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. The line of service as drawn by you is pleasing and healthy like morning dew, the oldest of all, but in new dress. So this was another major hallmark of Bhaktisiddhanta, that he was innovative. He took the oldest of all, the path, the line of service, the line of bhakti, and he put it in new dress. I want to move now to another poem. This one composed by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, which in the view of many of his leading followers encapsulates the mood and mission of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and follows from this last verse. Now, it's not so well known in our society. But I do feel that it's also the spirit that Srila Prabhupada embraced. Now, this poem was composed in, 1922, I think. at the time of shifting from Ultadanga Road to Bagh Bazaar, Gaudiya Math. So, before coming to this point, perhaps we should do a little bit of historical review so we get ourselves into the history here. Just very briefly, time is a little short. As we mentioned, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur appeared in Puri. Srila Prabhupada has also mentioned this in 1874. And his early life is filled with so much Leela, and I hope that others will be able to speak, or you can also read yourself. I don't have time to go deeply into his early life and still do the other things I'd like to do. But just briefly, and again, I would recommend, if you want to get a nice, good synopsis, our godbrother, Sri Nandana, also known as Stephen Knapp, K-N-A-P-P, has done a very good brief biography on Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. So, just some of the highlights. Of course, he was named as Bimala Prasad. But it said here that by the age of 7, he had memorized all 700 verses of the Bhagavad-gita and could explain each one. Not just memorization. He knew what they meant and could explain them. This is an indication. At the age of 10, he went to the Sirampur Missionary School, and it said that that is the time that he received formally, you could say, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and Nrsingadev mantra from his father. It says that in his school he invented, this is an indication again of his nature, his talent. He invented a kind of phonetic alphabet, which he called Bikranti. Then he went to a Sanskrit college, became expert in Sanskrit grammar. He had such a clear memory, he could reproduce word for word any passage of any book he had read 50 years back. So as we know, he excelled also in astronomy, and he began teaching this in 1897. He opened a school, which he called Saraswati Chatuspati. He also formed something called the August Assembly for celibacy, basically, and he remained, I think, the only remaining person after about 15 years. All the rest dropped out. I learned yesterday during this time that his color, because we only have mostly black and white, I think only black and white pictures of Bhaktisiddhanta. Whatever we see in color is colored in. And apparently he was very fond of wearing green cloth as a celibate brahmachari of the August Assembly. He wrote his commentary on Surya Siddhanta. He was offered a chair at the University of Calcutta, but he declined because he thought it would be too much. At some point in here, he was awarded the title of Siddhanta Saraswati, not Bhakti Siddhanta, but simply Siddhanta Saraswati, because of his astronomical work. So this is his kind of early life, where he's, he's assisting his father, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He takes over the writing. He is encouraged now to take initiation. And he does, from Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji, and that's another big story. So finally we're at the point where he has gone through all of the early life. He's now initiated, but he's not ready. He's not ready.
for his mission. He has one more thing to do: to chant the holy names 1 billion times. And if I had more time, I was also going to try to calculate. I think that's basically 3 lakh names a day for 10 years, I think. I'm not sure. Someone else can calculate. But I'm pretty sure that's, because we're talking about 100 crore, Anyway, do the math. Those of you who have, good brains can instantly. But basically what Haridas Thakur did, he entered into that. And he did it here. He came here to Mayapur, to this same area of where his father had established the Yoga Pith. I don't know that we know exactly. Do we know where particularly? Was it where he established Chaitanya Math? Because I've heard also, yes? Yes. So where did Bhaktisiddhanta do his bhajan? Was it in? Yeah, there's a place there. It's called Chandanacharya Bhavan, right? I think so. I think it's called Chandana. There's a big sign there that says, "There's nothing in here. You can't go here. Don't bother." Something like that. But from what I understand, that's the location of Chandanacharya. Chandanacharya was, practically speaking, Nimai Pandit's guardian when his father passed away. Chandanacharya became, because Chandrasekhar, yes, Chandrasekhar. He was related to Sachimata. Anyway, there was some relation. So he assumed like guardianship, because taking care of both Sachi and Nimai. So very intimate. And I've understood that that's where he did his, and he was so absorbed in doing his Nam Bhajan that even when the monsoon came and there was holes in his roof, he simply took his umbrella and just held it up. This was his preparation. Full absorption in Sri Nam. And when he completed his vow, he came out like a lion. He came out like a lion to preach. And where did he go? He went to Calcutta. Calcutta at the time was, I think, was still the capital. I'm not sure when Delhi, maybe by this time it was not the capital. But it was the center of the British Empire in India in most respects. He went to Calcutta, 1918. First he established the Chaitanya Math in where he was sitting. That was the mother of the whole Gaudiya mission was Chaitanya Math, right there, where it is today. And then Calcutta, number 1, Ultadanga Road. And the preaching is moving. The devotees are coming. He's giving, it's 1918 also when he completes his vow that he takes a picture of his Guru, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. He takes 3 bamboos, or 4 bamboos, right? It's 4 that's inside. He takes the bamboos, he wraps them up, puts them down, touches it to his guru's head, and accepts the sannyasashram, to preach. Becomes bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Not Thakur, Thakur comes later, but bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Goswami. Goswami, I believe, is what he was known. And he takes that danda and he marches to Calcutta and he begins to preach. Someday we'll learn more about those early days, who were the first people. I haven't been able to discover that yet. Maybe between now and tonight, which we're doing a program, I'll learn more. And people come, and he gives them sannyas. And he begins to initiate and give sannyas and send out parties of Harinam Sankirtan. And he begins to print. And so his printing is going on. The distribution is going on. The Sankirtan is going on. Land is given. A fabulous temple is built in Bagh Bazaar in North Calcutta. How many here have visited Bagh Bazaar Mutt? Not many. Who? No one? Of course, you've been there. I've only been a couple of times. My most recent visit was just I was there long ago, and I went just about a year ago. And now there's a museum there, which is Chaitanya Museum, very nice. But you can see this is a substantial temple. So now they're moving from Ultadanga Road, which now is also in ISKCON's possession, so soon you'll be able to see what that was like, because it's being redone to be just like it was during his time. And as they're moving, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta composes this verse. Mattala Harijana Vishaya Range Pujala Ragapata Gaurava Bhange. So this is the translation that I picked up on. The servants of Harijana, Matala meaning taking on their heads, Harijana, Vishaya Range, are engaged in lavish affairs, material wealth, and engaging all manner of things in the Lord's service. They worship the path, Pujala Ragapata. They worship the path of spontaneous devotion, and this is where I'm a little confused, with Gaurava Bhange. But Gaurava means awe, reverence. But Bhange generally means to break down. And yet, what's being said here is that they are, it appears that the awe and reverence has been broken, but what's been broken is not the awe and reverence for Sri Krishna, but the awe and reverence for this material world. The awe and reverence for all these lavish things. The awe and reverence for the opulence that is being offered to Krishna. And rather, is being offered Pujala Ragapata from the platform of spontaneous love. The next verse, saying just to finish this, they remain with Gaurav Bhange, and to show that the Ragapata, above all, above our heads, Matala, They remain as servants, being a little distant and below, praying for that of a servant's duty, not for that of a confidential nature. Not to bring that highest divine love down here, but to hold that upon their heads. Brahmala chari bhaga chinmaya bhange dola pati pati bhakata sange. Having given up all types of sense enjoyment, one should wander through the divine land of Gauradesh, running along all the paths and roads in the association of the devotees. Charara paragara archita gange bigala rasa niti nachala dhange. Leaving that previous house forever to worship on the banks of the river Ganges, one will understand the science of rasa by engaging in Sankirtan. So this was composed, as I said, by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta as they were going in Sankirtan in a grand procession with the deities to their new home in Bagbazar, Gaudiya Math. So this spirit of engaging everything in Krishna's service, this spirit of yukta vairagya, being able to simultaneously remain filled with spontaneous love for Krishna and yet use everything in this material world. This is the art that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is teaching us. And we are so fortunate to have his prime excelled #1 student as our teacher. We are here today honoring Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur solely because of our good fortune to become connected with his student, disciple, son, and one may say the inheritor, you could say, of his legacy, because he absorbed all of this. He absorbed it all. And he took it, as he said, Prabhupada comments how he was perusing the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur on the verse in Bhagavad-gita, Vyavasyatmaka buddhi ekeha kurunandana. How the meaning of this is realized when one considers the order of one's spiritual master to be their life and soul. So Srila Prabhupada, our Srila Prabhupada, took the first order that he received and all the instructions that he received thereafter to be his life. His life. Everything. And he simply tried to bring it out, to be like I wouldn't say a clone, because a clone is exactly the same, but a true student of the Master, a true representative of the Parampara. I want to move now to the last Vyas Puja offering of our Srila Prabhupada to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in February of 1936. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur departed this world in December, the end of December of 1936. So this was the last occasion. It's my understanding that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's illness became manifest about 6 months prior to his departure. So there was not a lot of sign of his imminent. Although there were some hints, we hear from Srila Prabhupada, that he was becoming, I think Prabhupada used the term disgusted with the infighting and politics that had arisen after entering the Bagh Bazar Gaudiya Math, who will get this room or things like that. And made the comment that I'm thinking that to sell the marble, and there's a lot of marble in that temple, sell the marble and just print books. So there may have been some hints, but it was not obvious. So in this was an address. It appears to be not just an address to the devotees, because Prabhupada uses the term frequently in this, gentlemen. So it was delivered in February of 1936 on the Vyas Puja. The members of the Gaudiya Math, and I'm sure there were others in attendance. But I want to point out this primary, where he begins here. Gentlemen, the offering of such an homage as has been arranged this evening to the Acharya Dev is not a sectarian concern. For when we speak of the fundamental principle of Gurudev or Acharya Dev, we speak of something that is of universal application. There does not arise any question of discriminating my guru from yours or anyone else's. There is only one guru who appears in an infinity of forms to teach you, me, and all others. The guru, or Acharya Dev, as we learn from the bona fide scriptures, delivers the message of the absolute world, the transcendental abode of the absolute personality, where everything simultaneously serves the absolute truth. I was reading this and thinking that though certainly I was not born, I was born almost 20 years after Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur left this world. And yet I have a relationship with him. We all have a relationship with him. We all have a relationship with him, and through him, and with Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji, and with Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and Jagannath Das Babaji, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, all the way back to Srila Vyasadeva. We are today celebrating as Vyasa Puja. As Vyasa Puja, we are worshiping not just and honoring not just an individual, a personality. And this is not to say that to in all way take away from the extraordinary qualities of this particular individual, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. But we are also in this occasion worshipping the fundamental principle. The principle that the divine knowledge, that the knowledge of the absolute truth descends to us through the chain of parampara. And that the principle of guru is to represent that lineage like a postman. And we can see this in our Srila Prabhupada, how he took the instructions that he had heard, the example that he learned from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and brought it into this new age. Because that was also part, as Prabhupada has said here, oldest of all, but in new dress. This principle that Guru is one, the teaching is one, the message is one, but it appears, it comes in many, many ways. Many, many ways. According to the time, the need, and the personality of the devotee bringing it to us. So today we can both appreciate and remember the extraordinary gifts of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And we can reflect on how those gifts have been transmitted to us, who have been given to us by our Srila Prabhupada, and how we now have to carry those forward. We have to accept them and understand them deeply. Be able to give them to others in the same way. Try to make that connection. Keep that line strong and tight. So I want to end with just reading. We're a little over time, but we're fasting, so I guess we can take a couple more minutes to just hear something of how Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur preached. This is something called Amrit Vani, and it's some questions and answers. So this is just one part but it gives you a taste. So a question, very pertinent question for us. How can we destroy our desire for material enjoyment? Now, how many times does that question come in a Bhagavatam class? I mean, if you want to, any of you have sat in this here, and it's right. I mean, it's the common perennial question. We all have it. How can we get rid of our desires for material enjoyment? Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's response. Oh, by the way, I learned yesterday, or day before, during his time, there were no tape recorders, right? It's not like, for us, we see that Srila Prabhupada, whenever he was walking around or he gave a lecture or whatever, there was a tape recorder. And so we have the exact words. But what happened during Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's time? So apparently he had 2 or 3 secretaries who would be with him with pad and pen. Sundarananda Vidya Vinod was one. Ananta Vasudeva, I believe, was another. and maybe there was like one more. And like Sundarananda Vidyan Vinod particularly would take notes if there was some practical matter and if there was some preaching point. And so Srila Bhaktisiddhanta would be speaking, then he would turn and say, write this down, right? Take this down, right? And maybe they knew shorthand, I don't know. But, they would take down. So it's, this is how we get a lot of this. And of course he wrote letters and he wrote books. Okay, how can we destroy our desire for material enjoyment? Only when we realize, by the mercy of Guru and Sadhu, that we are servants of the Supreme Lord, will we attain auspiciousness. As soon as we receive transcendental knowledge, our propensity to enjoy matter will be destroyed. Until we understand the principle that we are servants of the Lord and devotees of Vishnu, we will continue to see the material world as meant for our enjoyment. We will not be able to see this world in the mood of Isha Vasyam. We try to lord it over material nature. You can see here Srila Prabhupada's language is how it's coming from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, lording it over material nature. The only hope we have of spiritual survival is to seek the association of a pure devotee. Those who desire their ultimate benefit should not approach preachers who are puffed up with lust, anger, greed, ego, or envy. If they do, they will never attain transcendental knowledge. Unless we associate with great personalities who are free from material desire, our own desire for material enjoyment will not be destroyed. We will not realize ourselves as the Lord's servants. The Chaitanya Charitamrita states, Mahat Kripa Vina Kona Karane Bhakti Naya Krishna Bhakti Dure Rahu Sangsara Nahe Chai. Unless one is favored by a pure devotee, one cannot attain the platform of devotional service. To say nothing of Krishna Bhakti, one cannot even be relieved from the bondage of material existence. And that's from the Madhya Lila. The printing didn't work here, so I can't finish this. Madhya 22:51. Okay. So you can see here, this is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, his presentation, and the presentation that we've received is simply in line. Now it is our job to take the same presentation and to present it in our words, in our language, but without any distortion, as it is, as servants of the servants of the servants. We serve Srila Prabhupada, our Srila Prabhupada, in his service to his Srila Prabhupada, in his service, and the line of service goes on. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Hari Bol. So, anyone, I guess it's already 9:15, so I guess we should end here. And the program today will be offering Pushpanjali to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta at, excuse me? 12 o'clock. So we'll be doing Pushpanjali and Arti for Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And tonight, if you are inclined, at 7 p.m., you can tune in, and we're going to be doing a pictorial journey into the life of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. I'm going to try to, through pictures, we've tried to assemble lots of photographs and explore Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's life again. Okay? Hare Krishna. Thank you. Dandavat, Srila Prabhupada. Jai. Yep, wasn't easy.